Welcome to the Coco and Confident podcast, where the most beautiful thing you can wear is confidence. Welcome to the Coco and Confident podcast, where the most beautiful thing you can wear is confidence. I'm your host, Marlene, and we are on another episode, episode 3, and today's topic is about mystery meat. But before we get into that, I wanted to let you guys know that we are going to be having high-level conversations around topics that matters to us teens. And this show is empowered by Project Diva International. And if you're wondering what Project Diva International is, PDI is a personal and professional development organization for girls both in high school and middle school, which I am a part of. I am a team and executive, which is for the high school girls, and for the middle school girls, they are the girls on the go. Okay, no more waiting. We're just going to get right into it. On today's episode, we'll be having high-level conversation around school food. But before we get started, I want to start by introducing the wonderful Miss Katrina. Welcome, Miss Katrina.
Thank you. Glad to be here to share my story and everything else.
Yes, of course. Let's have you introduce yourself. Tell the audience a little bit about you so we can get to know you better.
So my name is Katrina Poitier. I am a farmer, an agriculture consultant, an author, and an educator. So I've also acted in a film. So I would consider myself an actress as well. I do, my study is more about food insecurity and the things that I've done here in the Dallas area for students as well as adults.
Okay, we have to slow down a little bit because you do about just everything.
I do. My husband is such a go-getter and he is such an inspiration. What happened was we started out just wanting to do like a small garden for home.
Mhm.
And we ran a nonprofit in Dallas over, I think it was West Dallas, I think they called it. Not sure. Pleasant Grove area here in Texas. And so his mom started a nonprofit and it was called FAWC Conservatory of Arts and Sciences. We were doing that and we were teaching the kids about science activities and things like that that they could do outside of basketball and other sports. Saying, trying to promote being an astronaut or a paleontologist or something like that. And I'm a cook. I love food. I'm a chef at heart. And I would cook them, snacks. I would purchase snacks and I would cook a little something, maybe some spaghetti or, something because it was after school.
Yeah.
And they would eat and leave. And so my husband, Coy Portier, we were like, what's going on? They're eating our food. They're not getting the knowledge. They're just leaving. Or they would be on the little couches that I prepared and they'd be asleep. Well, little did we know that them going to school was the last and probably the first meal that they would have for that day. And when Friday came, that was the last meal that they would see until Monday. And so we started changing how we approached the students and how we fed them. We started asking for community donations. We started partnering with different people. And eventually we started having meals, hot meals delivered. And so once that started, they were more interested in what we had to say. They wouldn't just come and eat the food and leave. Yeah. And so we did a lot of educational programs with them. One starting out, the Walmart on Wheatland Road went out of business. And being that we had the nonprofit, his aunt gave us a call and she was like, hey, I know you have a nonprofit. Would you mind coming and helping me get a few plants? So we were like, sure, it's his aunt. Um, got over there and they were getting rid of the whole garden center.
Mm.
And so the manager came to us and he said, I see you have a legitimate 501(c)(3). If you can remove every single thing out of this garden section, you can have it. Well, we had a friend that had a box truck. We
Mhm.
did 6 loads in
Wow.
that box truck. And when we were done, we had about 7 bags, garbage bags, full of seeds. And we thought, this is going to be absolutely great. We can make money for the nonprofit. We can sell, the stuff. And well, I'm a gardener at heart. I used to do it with my grandmother as a child. And I was like, well, I'm going to just take a little bit for me and I'm going to grow some stuff. And I started taking care of a few of the plants. Well, little did I know, taking care of those plants, I was like, well, I can switch this over and use them at the nonprofit to cook the children food.
Mhm.
The kids came in, they were like, hey, Miss Katrina, what are you doing? And I started, telling them about the program and how the Walmart gave us all these things. And they were like, well, we want to do it too. And so I brought over like a whole bunch of plants and we started giving them out and teaching them how to, use them. But we were using YouTube University. And so
Yeah.
so we were not seasoned in what we were doing, but we were passionate about it because we wanted to feed the kids. Well, some people heard about what we were doing and said, why don't you call these people? And so it turned out to be the what is it, Texas Master Gardeners. And so we went in and we called them out and we were like, hey, we've got like 30 trees that we really don't know what to do with. Can you show, take them with you? We'll give them to you.
Mhm.
And they were like, well, you have all this property. Why don't you try to plant them? And so we're like, plant them, you know, really? So we did YouTube University.
Of course.
Um, the church got together. We planted about 60 trees in the backyard of the church.
Mhm.
Started taking care of them. They said, okay, so you got them planted in. If you can keep them alive in February, this was like September, November. And so, with that being said, we had until February that we had to try to take care of trees that we had no clue about.
Mhm.
Well, we did it. We took care of the trees. They started bearing small fruit. They came back and they were like, hey, we're gonna put you in a class. It's called the Master Gardeners class. It's supported by Texas A&M. And we were like, oh, okay, cool. We got there. They granted us in, gave us a scholarship. We became, master gardeners. And we thought, there are people out there that need these skills that can't afford this class.
Yeah.
And so my husband and I got together and we just decided to start a consulting agency where we would teach people how to farm as we learned. And then it just grew from there. And
Wow.
so, in a nutshell, that's who I am. My husband and I work together. He's written a book um, that's on Amazon. I've written a biblical journal that, you going outside and being able to just jot down, little things according to scripture and just having a peaceful, space.
Mhm.
And so with that, we decided to come out to Cedar Hill State Park to kind of go on a date. And we never left Cedar Hill State Park. And so it became our home.
Mhm.
So behind me is a lake. Um, we deal with different types of animals and things like that. And it's just a fun adventure for me and my son and my husband to, join in with. So that's kind of what I do.
You don't even understand how in awe I am of your story. Like just who you are as a person. Like this is so beautiful. Like,
Well, thank you. I'm very honored.
oh my,
It's something that is very, very much needed.
yes.
Um, we found out that, in the city of Dallas, there are so many people who are not getting meals. They don't have, or if they're getting those meals, it's not fresh. It's canned, and it has chemicals on it because people think that they're getting fresh vegetables, but in order for those to be transported, they have to be sprayed with something. They
Yeah.
have those bugs have to be taken. And with, during our study, mom, we saw a video on YouTube. My husband's a big, huge fan of YouTube, and what he does is he stays up till 3 o'clock in the morning studying.
Hmm.
And so I get all these text messages: watch this video, watch that video, look at this video. And the one particular video that stuck with me was one where a gentleman went into the grocery store. He scratched his head. He picked up a fruit, looked at it, smelled it, and then put it back down. And the whole basis of that was how many other people have done that with that produce.
Yeah.
So, like, you're in the grocery store, you pick up a plum and you bite it. Well, who just touched a body part and put it back?
Yeah.
And so we push those. Sustainability is not just vegetables, it's cleanliness as well,
Yes.
and supporting health.
Yeah.
And so if we can't do that, if we don't have that, if we don't have someone bringing that to our knowledge, to put in our mindset, we this is where health problems come in at. You
Yeah.
get sick, you catch a cold, and you haven't been around anyone who's had a cold.
Mhm.
And so it's a real passion that I have for food sustainability.
Yes. I'm so glad that you were able to share with the Confidence Crew of who you are. And I hope you all enjoyed hearing a lot about Miss Katrina, but we're about to hear more about her opinions as we get further into today's episode. So let's just jump right into it. Confidence Crew. My question of the day for you all is, how does school food honestly make you feel in general, like as a whole? How does it truly make you feel, and what do you think that schools can improve on? Miss Katrina, would you like to answer that question? Like, what are you
Or
on that question?
sure. My kids went to school and they are very, very spoiled. All of my kids. I have 4 boys and 3 girls.
Hmm.
And in going to school, they would say, "Oh, mom, please bring me something to eat. The food is nasty." And I have a daughter in college now studying agribusiness in Langston, and she's like, "I'm not eating this. I can't eat this." And I think where cafeterias, where schools, where the boards can come in at is advertising that fresh food, making sure that it's cooked properly, making sure that it's tasteful. I know there are guidelines that say, you can't put certain seasonings, you can't do a lot of things, but at least have it where students are aware of what they're eating. If they're getting something healthy, um, even if it's an apple, a banana, or if you're gonna do the triangle, if you're following the triangle, which I've done nutrition in the past, and I know that's what the state really bases the meals on for the schools. They have to stay within that triangle.
Hmm.
Um, Make sure it's tasty for the students, not only tasty but healthy, and
Yeah.
that can be done. It's just a getting the student's opinion versus just throwing something at them. And
Yeah.
so I think that would help them to, establish a better relationship with the students and the cafeteria that serves their food.
Hmm. Yes. I love how you pointed out that they have to stick with the guidelines. And I never really
Right.
thought about it like that because going, like me being a junior in high school and have been eating school food since what, preschool, kindergarten,
Yeah.
like over time, it also depends on what school you're going to, of course. Not all
Yeah.
schools have bad food, but my personal opinion on my current school's food, it's just, I feel like we're not getting the nutrition we need. We're like barely getting like, the good vitamins. A lot of the food has turned to foods that can just be thrown in an oven, something quick. Like, we're never eating good food. It's not good food anymore, in my opinion. Like, even today, we had cheese bites for lunch and that was it. Maybe like you grab a fruit or you'll grab milk or something, but that's not something that'll fill you up. Most days, plates like school trays are barely filled. And it's very hard because we have to go from 8 to 3 and then we get that period and we're not eating anything. And we need that
Right.
food to go throughout the day. And on top of the food, my school, they only rinse the red trays that we have. It's like these plastic red trays. And they only rinse it.
The balance tray.
Mm-hmm. They only rinse it with water. So when they stack it back up, sometimes it still has food in it. And they're telling kids to I remember one time, let me tell y'all this. I remember one time I had grabbed a tray and it was filled with ranch in it and I didn't know what to do with it. And the lunch lady yelled at me to put it on top of where the food was. Like, I don't know how to explain. Like, when you go to a buffet and it has like some.
The racks.
Yeah, the rack. She told me, "Oh, just put on the rack. Like it needs to be clean." It should have been clean the first time.
Yeah.
And it's so hard because it's an everyday thing. Like if I'm not finding food, I'm finding water that's not clean, and they're putting the food on the tray with the dirty water. So it's like I'm consuming that. So
Right.
it's just a lot that goes into it, and I just feel like that schools need to be more intentional with how they're feeding students because I feel like they're not aware of how the food truly treats us young students and young people as a whole when it comes to eating food. But that's my take. It's an everyday thing.
That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot. It happens in more than just, one place. It happens in a lot of schools. I remember being 19 in a dishwasher at a restaurant, and the machine that you put it through, sometimes you had to run it through a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those cafeteria ladies they don't have time.
They
I
do.
mean, they're feeding hundreds of children, and they just don't have time to recheck things.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not making an excuse, but it's just, I would say, the um dedication put into what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yeah, hmm,
I'll definitely say that schools are more focused on the aesthetics and expensive technology and whatever
hmm,
for the building than thinking about foods that are nourishing and fulfilling for kids to eat. And when kids come to school to learn, they're supposed to be fed to keep that feel going. And there's a lot of kids in my school who are never eating. Like I remember the other day, like maybe the Wednesday or Thursday, there was this student and she was like, "Oh, I'm so hungry." And I'm like, "Oh, you didn't eat the pizza?" And she refused to eat the main lunch and the side lunch. And it shouldn't have to be like that. Kids should be able to eat what is being served. And sometimes the most disheartening part is that kids can't bring food from home all the time. That's like everybody's home
right.
situation is different. And sometimes it's just it depends on whatever your situation is.
Yeah, I would say that. I have a friend who does school lunches, after school lunches. She actually makes hot meals and brings them to the certain schools.
Hmm.
Um, and so that kind of helps, but it can also be a problem because financially, you're only given so much. And so you can only do so much.
Yeah.
And with that being said, I'm, as a parent, not having time to go and check the menu because I'm either working, I'm a single parent, I'm doing this, I'm working two jobs or something like that. So what seems important to the student doesn't really hit home with parents
Mm-hmm.
unless that's a stay-at-home mom. And so unless the students say something about, hey, we want a different type of way of doing our lunches, and someone actually stands up to it. I know I've gone to at least two or three schools here in Dallas where they have gardens outside and they're teaching the kids how to grow fruits and vegetables that can be grown outside. And so where they get that, and then the cafeteria ladies, they would go out and pick it and, serve it to the students, and they would have like a salad or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So as a student, if that is a problem, I really feel like that student should set something up, at
Mm-hmm.
least try to speak on behalf of the students, or student president, or something like that would help in that situation. It might not be a fast solution, but it can be a start. And
Yeah.
even saying, hey, go to the principal, say we want to grow, have someone come in and teach the children a little bit about agriculture, on how to grow their own food, and maybe input it into the budget to where they won't spend so much outside of the school because they're growing their own vegetables and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So there's some solutions out there that can be done.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of implementing them and who's going to start it.
Yes. I love that you said like maybe a student that's very involved within the school, like pushing out these ideas. I feel like that's a really good start, especially with students who are very involved within the school. They already have some says within different areas of the building, so why not bring attention to um, you know, things that we're consuming on a daily and everything that will pertain to give us energy throughout the day. But one thing I want to do here right quick is give some statistics right quick. And according to Hanson Melanie with her um article, School Lunch Debt Statistics, according to, or not according to, but as of January 9th, 2024, there was about 30.4 million students who could not afford their school lunch meals. And
That's believable.
we have about 8 million or 8 billion people on this earth. And the fact that there's 30 million students not able to eat is something I cannot wrap my head around. And that's a lot of kids.
Yeah, it is definitely. Um, Statistics show that there are about one farmer per 100 and maybe 60 families that is trying to feed, and it's between weather, between the different weather here, just in Dallas alone this morning, it said it was going to be sunshine. Well, it rained this morning.
Mm,
And so, farmers go through a lot to push their food out and, make sure that crops are good. But one farmer is trying to feed 150 to 60 families.
right.
And so if you ever are here and go to the what is it, the state fair, they
Mm-hmm.
have a spoon versus forks. And what it does is it shows you how many uh farmers versus the amount of people
Mm,
that is on earth. And so they have it's like it's big box, and it's like this much of spoons versus like a whole hunk of forks. And
right.
so with that being said, the spoons would be the farmers, and of course the forks are way up here and the farmers are way down here. And with the inclement weather that is happening now, we're losing a lot of food. It's also expected that by 2050 we won't have enough food to feed the world as it is. I mean, right now we can't we barely are, making it by.
Mm,
Just think 2025, they're saying it's going to be worse. So, you know, being sustainable in growing your own, at least a bucket or something that would help you. A lot of people are going to, suffer and are still suffering now. I know we had a storm, I think about 2 years ago. My husband and I had a farm that we were working on, which is the one that was at the church. Um, we never ran out of food. We
mm,
had fresh food to pick out of the garden every day. We had so much, we had to find people to give it away to. Like we literally stood out beside the road, put out a sign, and it was like free everything. And we had displays, and people would stop by in their cars and pick it up. And so, I mean, it is hard to
it's amazing.
have the supply from the farmers, and then farmers, they get about 17% of the sales that you get out of the grocery store.
Hmm.
So while you're spending all of your money, the farmers are getting maybe 15 to 17% of that. And so they're not making a lot of money. And so if they're not making a lot of money and there's no food in the grocery stores like it was 2 years ago when you went into the grocery store and Walmart was completely empty, what are you going to do?
Right.
So it's definitely a heartening um, situation to deal with, to see. I've had a child at the program who lost his life at the age of 15, going to the grocery store to get some food for his siblings and got caught in the crossfire of gang war
Mm,
and lost his life. He was going to get snacks for his siblings from the store, the corner store, and it hurts to see that happen. But a lot of times these kids are fighting not for just their life, but for food. And so it is a huge problem.
mm. I need y'all to let that sit with you for a minute. A couple things that Miss Katrina said. By 2050, there's not going to be a whole lot of food to even feed the world. So imagine your day to day, maybe you're wasting food here and there, you're taking more than you can eat. Like imagine now you're wasting so much food, but when a time comes around when there's not enough, you're gonna be thinking about all the times that, man, I wish I would have or I could have, but you know, it's in the past. Like, and then what you just said just now about that boy who lost his life going to go get food for he and his siblings, it just puts so many things in perspective for you. For
Yes.
me, it just lets me know that you have to be grateful for every day that you wake up because you never know. Simply as going to the grocery store, you can lose your own life depending on where you live or what your situation looks like. And that really broke my heart just now. I cannot even believe that. But it's a daily thing. It's like different places, things are constantly
Yeah.
happening. And I really think this is why that schools have switched over to free reduced lunch. Um, my school definitely is one of the schools that have switched over to that. And I feel
Good.
like that kind of ties into our next portion about how parents and school decision makers like understand the connection between food and young people acting out at school. And I feel like when it comes to, certain kids not being able to eat maybe at home, but they're coming to school and they're either not eating or they're eating the food, it makes you think, is the unhealthy behavior with students acting up at school and the unhealthy behavior with the adults putting money into things at the schools. Like, what do you think, Miss Katrina? Do you think that it has some relation between the two?
I think not having food at home or even not getting rest at home. Um, and I keep going back to everything that I saw when I we were running the nonprofit. We would get students who would just want a safe place to get some sleep. Like students will act up, children will act up if they're tired. And it's not always because they're playing an Xbox or some type of video game. It could be mom does not want me in the house at this time, and it could be 12 o'clock at night. We had a couple of people who would knock on my door. We would be upstairs. We used to live upstairs, and the building was downstairs in an apartment complex. And they would come and knock on my door and say, Miss P, we're hungry. And
Mm,
these would be kids who are 2 years old,
mm,
kids who are in diapers, and the older sibling has their hand. And so we wouldn't let them in our house, but we would take them downstairs to the office, to the building that we had the nonprofit in. And we would make them a sandwich until they said, well, I'm going to go home and see if my mom was ready for me to come in the house. So it's not just about feeding them. They have to have mental nourishment as well. And so with that example, um, when the students go to school, if they're tired, they're going to act out. They're probably going to sleep. They're going to be grouchy, which means they're going to be mean. They're going to be disrespectful. And if they're hungry, their mind is not on schoolwork. They're on where can I get my next meal from? And so therefore they're going to lash out because they're hungry. Who can do a mathematics problem if your stomach is louder than your thoughts? And so you just have to understand that as a parent, we go through things, but the things that we go through, our children go through as well. And so a lot of people don't think that, and a lot of people don't see that, but you have to understand that you're as a parent, you're not the only one that goes through. It might be something that is beyond your control, but your child is going through it as well.
yeah, that's good. I love that you said that. A lot of parents are not, sometimes most parents, I won't say most parents, but there's a handful of parents that don't pay attention enough to the fact that most of the time their child is going through whatever their situation is with them. But you constantly hear, um, like maybe let's use mental health for an example. Like their child might be depressed or have a lot of anxiety because of the living situation, but their parent or the parent will be like, "Oh, you don't have depression or you don't have anxiety, you don't
Right,
pay bills," but they're not paying attention to the factors that is has constantly been going on. Maybe it's a cycle, maybe it's something their child has seen since birth, you know.
yes,
I love that you pointed that out because it's something that you see all the time, that I see on a daily. There's kids that I have been paying attention to at school. I'm just sitting in my mind sometimes thinking, how can I help this student? Like they may not know
hmm
me, but how can I help? Because like I tell people all the time, you never know what someone is going through. There's this
right,
that I constantly think about, and I'm wondering how can I help them because it's cold outside. It's
yes,
January, and I see this student wear the same clothes every day, and it's shorts and a sweater. And I'm constantly thinking to myself, how can what clothes can I get? Where can I get some type of free clothing or something to give to like this student without making it weird, but like just showing
right,
I'm concerned because it's so cold here in Minnesota and constantly having to see students struggle with whatever they're going through at home and they have to just come to school because, they can't just stay home. It's really another factor that plays into the behavior, like you said. It's sometimes it may not be food. It may be the home situation. So thank you
I
so
remember when I was in high school, there was this young lady that was unpopular. And I wasn't as popular, but I didn't get picked on per
much.
se. And I remember the main thing that they picked on was her clothes. And she would go in the restroom and she would just cry and cry and cry. And I've always been passionate about helping people. My grandmother had an open door policy. If you were hungry, you came to her house and you got something to eat,
Right.
whether it was a bologna sandwich or whatever. And I remember going to her and asking her if there was something that would make you happy in going to school, what would it be? And she said, to have your clothes. I was like, okay. So I thought it was weird. I really did think that because I didn't see my clothes as being, important or extravagant. I wasn't a real materialistic person. But I went in my closet and I grabbed like three outfits. And I remember telling her, come with me to the restroom. And so we went to the girls' restroom and I pulled out those three outfits out of my backpack and I gave them to her. And you'd have thought I gave her a diamond ring.
Mm.
Um, she wore those clothes and her confidence level just completely changed. And it didn't cost me anything to give her those clothes.
Yeah.
It just, and it changed her for years to come. And she found me on Facebook a couple months ago and showed me her family and the confidence that she has now is just, and that was a few decades ago. Not to tell my age, but that was a while ago. That was, back in the 90s.
Wow.
Um
And she still
and
you.
she remembered. She said she particularly found me as my name has changed, but I keep my maiden name because my husband has a cousin with the same name. And so she said she found me and wanted to tell me how she turned out. And it was just three items of clothes. And
Mm.
I remember though, I gave her my favorite mini skirt and a blouse. And I gave her two pants outfits, and one had a jacket. And I thought, man, this girl found me after all these years just to say thank you for being her friend and giving her the opportunity to feel like a human being. So, I mean, I have stories for days, but it's just growing up and seeing stuff and not doing something about it makes you the problem.
Yeah,
So, if you can help, help.
100%. Oh my goodness, that was good. This was a good conversation. I love this episode a lot.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. All right, let's go ahead and switch over. This one is bringing your own food. So we're talking about food. You were talking a bit about your organization and making meals. So my question for you in Confidence Crew, you can answer this too as well in the comments. But as teens, like how can we find alternatives um to bring school or bring lunches to school or finding ways to like make our own meals if school food might not be an option or like different ways to have food if home situation might be a little rocky.
So there are some places that you can go to get help with food. Um, First off, here in Texas, it's called 211. I've given that number to quite a few people who They have, uh, situations where if you need shelter or if you need food or, anything like that. Um, First thing first, know that it's not an embarrassment to go to somewhere and get free food.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that would be one instant. Growing your own food, providing sustainability for yourself. It can be a small project. My husband and I grew uh, vegetables. We bought this little greenhouse, put it in our bedroom, and would plant 72 different plants on each row. And then we would take it out to the garden, of course, and plant it and make it larger. But just having something small to make you a salad, something as small and simple as a salad. You could pick it off out of your bedroom in that little mini greenhouse and take it with you. It's my understanding now that schools are not allowing you to bring, I think, lunch boxes, but they are allowing you to do paper bags. I'm not sure if that's vice versa or how that is. But just small stuff, things that you like. Pack a small lunch. If you had dinner that morning, that night, and there's leftovers, and it doesn't have to be used, microwave or whatever, and it doesn't spoil, then take it with you.
Right.
Um, I think my favorite lunch in kindergarten was hot dogs. Now I'm knowing that hot dogs are kind of unhealthy, but it's only $1 a pack.
Mm-hmm.
And so my thing was find a penny, pick it up. One penny leads to two pennies, leads to 50 cents, which leads to $1.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's not always easy to have money to buy groceries, but there are sometimes there's ways,
Yes, of
you
course.
know. There's no easy way to say how to do that
Mm-hmm.
because you never know the situation that that person is in. But, just don't give up and at least try to find that solution to help with the lunches.
Make the effort.
Yeah.
I do want to say, you touched on the lunchbox, and I don't think it's the same here in Minnesota, at least not for my school. But I do want to say that there is a slight stigma of the fact that it's embarrassing to bring your own lunch or your own lunchbox. And I just want to say that it is okay to bring your own lunch. And it's actually better if you can do it, because you don't want to sit and complain about school lunch, but then you have the resources to bring your own food from home.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. So I feel like as young students, we should learn how to break the stigma of, oh, it's embarrassing. I don't want to bring my own lunch. Like it doesn't have
Right.
to be, it can be something that caters to who you are, that shows your personality. It can be plain, it can be very minimalistic. As long as you're eating your home cooked, nutritious, healthy meal, you're all set to go.
Yeah, my kids used to put stuff in their backpacks all the time. My grocery box would be so empty because they would bring five extra friends something
Mhm.
out of the out of the storage bin, and I'd be like, okay, your whole backpack. They didn't even care about a lunchbox. They just filled up their backpack and went to school. And it was funny to me, but
Yes,
that's
even
just what they would do.
do that. I mean, whatever works for you. Make it easier for yourself and work around it. Make the effort to make your life easier as much as
Yeah.
possible.
And when you get a job, nobody's looking at your lunchbox
Nope.
because almost everybody in that job is going to have a lunchbox. You're
Hmm.
not always going to have time to go out and buy stuff, or you're not even going to have the finances to
Yeah.
try because you might be wanting to save for some type of reason. So a lunchbox is cool.
Yes, for sure. We have touched every point, Miss Katrina. I'm so happy that we got to be
Awesome.
about this today because I was thinking about this episode today in school. I'm like, I'm sitting here eating this tray water. I'm going to tell Miss Katrina about this. But I am just so happy that we got to have you on the Coco and Confident podcast and allow you to give us your insights about what you do as well as the foods and what that looks like with farming and even getting some bonuses with knowing a bit more about who you are. So, I just want to let the floor be open for you to promote any of your books or any resources or anything you have to share, go ahead and the floor is yours. And I'll also put it on the screen for you as well.
Awesome. So once again, my name is Katrina Portier. I do have a journal, a biblical journal that is on Amazon right now, and it basically is a spiritual journal of how to find peace through gardening, and just writing down your what I call your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And so those are led by scriptures, and you'll just, put an insight on there. So everything that I have, which is my book, my husband's book, um, and what we have is on Amazon.com. So if you look up Katrina Portier or Koi Portier, you will see a plethora of books that you can choose from. And we really appreciate the support and hope that the knowledge that are in these books help you to lead a sustainable life. The book that he has, we have one for children. So it's an ABC farming book. And then the one for adults, we can also, we have a book for beginners in farming. So if you want to learn to grow with the basics, we have a one-on-one farming book. And then of course my journal. My journal is a set of 4 and it is released every quarter. That was my first book. And so my next one will be coming out very soon. And then they'll come out every quarter. So if you go to Amazon.com and look up Katrina T. Portier and then Koi Portier, you will see the books. And oh, I forgot, we also have a film on the history of Black cowboys.
Mm.
And so that is also on Amazon. And it is called the multi Cowboys of Color, the Multicultural Legacy. And so the movie and the books, we have about 6 things that you can, look into, find your history, learn about the history of Black cowboys while learning how to grow your own food and become spiritually connected with yourself. And so, yes.
Thank you so much. I know I when you talked about the biblical journal, I my ears were open because I need that. But thank you so much for putting your stuff out there. I'm definitely going to put it on the screen so they can get a visual of what you're talking about and, have easy, quick links to your stuff. But we just want, once again, just thank you for taking out your time to be here on the podcast with us. And we're just going to wrap up by doing some takeaways or walkaways from today's conversation. So, is there something you're walking away with from today's episode?
Understanding that my teens are not the only teens that is dealing with food issues at school. Um, I think it should be really looked into. And I think that's something I might just kind of look into myself because I know my daughter has complained a lot. So I think, yeah, I think that's an area of expertise that I can kind of move into,
Mhm.
see what I can help with.
Yes, that would be
I
great.
thank you I thank you so much. I've done interviews a lot, but usually they're with my husband. So this is my first interview alone.
Oh my God, so happy.
So I'll give you that takeaway.
I am just walking away, taking away some good information from you, Miss Katrina. You really gave me a different perspective when it comes to school food. A couple things that I'll point out that you have mentioned that the lunch ladies have to feed hundreds and hundreds of kids a day. So when a tray is not clean, they don't have time to go back and wash it. So being mindful of that, you just gave me a different perspective with that instead of just thinking that they're purposely giving us dirty plates, or dirty
Right.
plates. And another thing you said that sometimes it's not even just the food, it's what is going on at home or whatever a student situation may be. And like you said, sometimes a student is looking for rest, somewhere to sleep. And I just appreciate you for bringing that awareness to this podcast because a lot of people tend to think that certain students are just problem students, which sometimes that may be the case, but there are students that go through things so they don't have an outlet for it. So they have behavioral problems within the school and whatever, you don't know their home situation. So they could be
Right.
going home to nothing. They could be going home to an abusive household, whatever that may look like. It's just every situation is different. And I just appreciate you for bringing that awareness to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Okay, that is all we had for today's episode. Thank you all so much for watching. You could have been anywhere else, but you decided to join us today on the third episode of Coco and Confidence. We thank you so much for tuning in with us. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure when you subscribe, you turn on your post notifications to get notified when we drop another episode. And we just want to thank you once again, Miss Katrina, for joining us on the Coco and Confident podcast. We'll see you all
Thank
in.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.